Jag vill också passa på att välkomna alla som droppar in här till Zoom. Välkomna till Folk- och fredskonferens 2025. Och klockan är slagen till 13:00 och det betyder att we will now switch to English for this part of the program. This part of the program has the title Freedom of Expression. And the first hour, we will give space for the keynotes to have a 15 minutes presentation each, followed by a discussion between them. If you have questions for that part of the discussion or for the keynotes, you can please write them in the chat and I will give them to our speakers. The second hour, we will open up for discussion for everyone. We will open up breakout rooms where you will have the chance to discuss in smaller groups before we end in the main room together. So, nice to see you, Olga Karachi. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And Tord Björk. And Olga, you will, I will give a small presentation of you, and I think you will start. Maybe you and Tord have been discussing a little bit. But Olga, you are a leading activist, pacifist, and a human rights defender from Belarus. You are also labeled as a terrorist and an extremist for this work you have done, the extensively work to promote human rights. You are currently based in Lithuania and actively opposing discrimination against Belarusians in that country as well. Your work is marked by a clear commitment to fairness and consistency, avoiding the double standards of freedom of expression. Welcome so much, Olga. And the room is yours.
Yeah, tack så mycket. And maybe I should add something about myself, because I received 12 years of prison already in absentia. So as Belarusian governmental propaganda says that I'm already in prison, and so officially I am in Belarusian prison now. And send hello for everyone. But of course, I don't know, Tord, would you like to say something before?
No.
Okay, so actually I love political jokes, because political jokes in Belarus, as you can imagine, are forbidden. And I want to start my reflection, maybe it could be more correct to say about this, from one small joke about Belarus and freedom of expression and a little religion. So, you know, after the death, usually people are going to paradise or to hell. And only Belarusians, after the death, they're going to Belarus. And you know, I hope we are still alive, but I have strong impression now that we all are moving to Belarus, or maybe even wake up in Belarus, but don't understand this, because now I am in exile in Lithuania, and for me it was much easy to be in Belarus and work under repressions, because in Belarus everything was very easy. We have angels, we are, who is fighting, you know, against bad guys and devil. And of course, we understand that we have a lot of propaganda from Russia and from the Belarusian regime. But when I moved to Lithuania, I was a little bit surprised. Actually, the former Lithuanian Prime Minister, she told publicly Belarusians feel in Lithuania like at home, and I even cannot imagine that she means in so direct way, you know, because in Lithuania now very often and more often I feel like in Belarus. And I feel like now we have propaganda from both sides, military propaganda, and I see how we have shrinking space for freedom of expression and freedom of speech. And what I mean that we have allowed topics which we can discuss publicly, and at the same time we have taboo topics and we cannot touch it. If you can touch the topics, it should be some kind of consequence for the people. What I mean taboo topics. For example, it's impossible to say that every Ukrainian man, this is some kind of like mainstream opinion and you have to support the opinion. Every Ukrainian man wants to go to the front. In reality, it's not true. But if you speak about it, if you speak about Ukrainian consensus objectors and violations which they have, of course, it should be some kind of troubles. The same situation like mainstream opinion is all Russian people support the war. Again, it's not true. And if you start to speak about anti-war activist in Russia who is facing repressions and imprisonment, etc., the same problems, the same troubles. And our problem now that we have more and more taboo topics. So the space for discussion, for public discussion, for reflections of the very complicated situation if we are all now, it's more and more. And also people who is trying to touch untesty topics and speak about it, they have a lot of consequence. And for me, it's shock and a lot of triggers because I had the same situation in Belarus and I have the same situation in Lithuania. And I'm quite sure that many people, my colleagues in different countries, have the same consequence. What I mean, in Russia, it's very easy to be labeled as foreign agent. In Belarus, as you can imagine, it's very easy to receive label as terrorist or extremist. And for terrorism in Belarus, this is a death penalty now. So you should imagine this is very dangerous. But in Lithuania, for example, Lithuanian Department of National Security declare or labeled people like they can be a threat of national security. And this is also accusation or agent of influence or something like that. In reality, this is the same. This is the social stigma for people who has the right, who is fighting for the right of expression and who try to touch very unpleasant topics and try to discuss it, try to reflect about it. And of course, in Belarus now, we speak about such kind of civil deaths, or as we already discussed with toward social deaths, when people who is not in the mainstream track, they disappeared. Not in physical sense, but they have some kind of death for civil society. They're excluded from the media. It's impossible to publish their articles. They excluded from the conferences, or even as we have the situation with Summit for Peace in Vienna, the place for the conference or the summit immediately is cancelled at last moment, etc., etc. And also this is a lot of economical pressure for civil society organizations who is trying to find the way and try to have such kind of public reflections about unpleasant topics and many other things. And in reality, we see how our governments or governments from our side, they have very easy explanation. We have a war. In reality, they still have no war. This is no war in Lithuania, this is no war in Sweden, in other countries, but this is explanation how to create such kind of shadow zone and how to get out from the universal conception of human rights. Because if you have wartime, of course, people say that we don't need to follow for legislation. We don't need to follow for human rights. We can do what we can or we want, etc., etc. So this is some kind of it's very serious consequence for European peace movement now. And if we speak about my common impression, this is now we are excluded from the decision-making process. We receive already some kind of prepared narratives by somebody, we don't know whom. We receive some kind of tracks, you know, and you cannot break the tracks. And this is very seriously problem, and we have to do something with this. And maybe we can make it in such kind of dialogue, because I don't want to have monologue. I think that we have to discuss it. Yeah, so maybe we can continue. We start.
Shall I continue, Ashik? Your microphone is not on.
Yeah.
Okay, I continue. My name is Tord Björk, and I've been active, especially in the environmental movement, since the UN Conference on the Environment in Stockholm 1972. And I consider all movements to actually be one movement with different aspects. It was very clear then it was the women's peace movement who was actually radicalizing the environmental movement, because the women's peace movement, especially Ingrid Segerstedt Wiberg, a liberal, claimed that it was necessary to challenge nuclear power. And before that, many in the environmental movement thought that this was an alternative to building dams and so on. But with this help from the peace movement, the environmental movement started to understand that one had to discuss the whole society, that we need less energy, that we both need to reduce oil dependency and can do nuclear. We don't need the nuclear power either. So that in that context, it was very clear in these days that we considered that the plundering, the starvation, the exploitation of the world was something that we were part of. There was not something that was only out there, some evil people who was doing this. We had to change ourselves as well. Not avoiding to also criticize other things, but we were had a relation with each other. So I've been continuing, and this made me feel the necessity of mobilizing the majorities in both rural and urban areas. So in 2010, I was part of an initiative to start to address forestry, agriculture issues, and how the rural economy is very much dependent on these kind of economic realities. And out of that came the necessity of understanding the central role that farmers have for civil contingency, that we cannot sort of trust big corporations to put a lot of tins in some place. We have to have the kind of self-sufficiency, the kind of trust that is enabled on the countryside by that there are farms, that there are producing food, but also have equipment if necessary, who may go and pass by when a fire starts and maybe stop the fire even before it starts. So this was sort of and still is a main task for me. And then also the peace issues became more important because I was part of a World Social Forum network and coordinating a meeting in Malmö with 15,000 participants, 800 from Central and Eastern Europe. And in that context, it was necessary to address also peace issues, and I've been continuing with that. Now is the situation so that we are discussing freedom of expression. And one is really important to see the differences that take place today. In the 70s, we did make an alternative energy plan. This was made by Friends of the Earth and by the field biologists, the Youth Environmental Organization. And in that, we had this idea how to change the whole energy system in Sweden to avoid nuclear power and reduce oil dependency with 50%. Now, this was addressed in the main papers as that we were green Khmers. We were as horrible as the red Khmers in Cambodia. But that was because we had stupid ideas. We had the stupid ideas going back to the Stone Age, and this was, of course, totally crazy as ideas. At the same time, there were the secret police made reports, because this study was funded by the government office. And there was saying in these secret reports that we actually were infiltrating the government. This is, of course, totally crazy. But it's much worse now. Now we are not having stupid ideas. We are seen as more or less agents of horrible, evil other countries. We are not anymore having stupid ideas. We are actually very dangerous persons, because we are presenting views that actually come from abroad. We are not simply domestic people who have some odd ideas that we need another kind of low energy society. And secondly, it's not any longer secret reports that is researched upon 20 years later. It's in real time addressed in think tanks, in different reports, with the same kind of paranoid ideas, which is understandable that the security police may have such. Some people, of course, have to look into how foreign countries can influence us. But when people are paid a lot of money to produce a lot of these kind of reports, and they start to quote each other, and they are not necessarily saying something correct, then we have a problem, because then this becomes public immediately. So it's actually in these terms more problematic. Doesn't mean that it was great before, because we also then had great problems to get our voice heard, because everything was translated into political party and what the political party leaders said, and the movements was very seldom had any possibilities to speak up. But anyway, this change needs the necessity of looking into.
And I want to give some kind of reflections about secret police, because, you know, it's like this is something that we are facing very often. Also, this is a problem that now secret police of different countries is not only collecting information, they try to manage, they try to lead the civil society. They try to have some kind of influence inside through the infiltrated agents, etc., etc. So this is also the problem. You know, like now in our region, we have very toxic atmosphere because nobody trusts nobody. The basic trust between people are destroyed. So people are afraid to say something. We have the case in our organization, for example, with one woman, Belarusian woman from Mogilov, Olga Tishkevich, very nice woman, maybe not very clever. So she made one mistake, and she was recruited by KGB, Belarusian secret police. And she was in Lithuania in exile, and of course she had a lot of blackmail from KGB, etc., etc. And when Lithuanian secret police knew about it, so this is Department of National Security official name, they didn't help her to avoid, to stop such kind of conversation, very bad conversation, because she was, you know, she was under the pressure and blackmail, etc., etc. No, they made recruiting her. So she was like double agent, and she made secret recording of our meetings, and sent to KGB and to Lithuanian KGB, you know, to both secret police. And this is crazy because a woman was so destroying that at least she was fleeing to Belarus, and she was ready to go to Belarusian prison under the torture only to stop the situation, because she didn't see any kind of exit for her. And by my opinion, this case is very important because okay, maybe if somebody wants to know what we do, it's not so big problem. But if they try to make reports like you're foreign agents or agents of influence of something, etc., this is a problem. And second one, when they start to manage everything, you know, and they start to push us to such kind of directions, or even provocate conflicts and scandals, etc., as we had the experience with Belarusian KGB. This is really bad, because I'm almost mad when I listen in Belarus. I was a threat of stability. When if you, of course, maybe you cannot read, but if you read Belarusian propaganda, you know, I am like threatening of Belarusian stability. I want to destroy the most beautiful system in the world, etc., etc. But I'm now in the Western countries. I'm in Lithuania, and I'm also threatening of stability. You know, it's crazy. So how it's possible that I was fighting for Belarusians in Belarus? I was under repressions. Now I'm in Lithuania. I'm fighting for Belarusians, and against I'm under repression. So crazy. So what happens? And by my opinion, yeah, it's like welcome to Belarusians in different countries, and the environment is so toxic now, and we have to reflect how we wake up in such kind of situation. And also, this is very important. I want to return to the question of civil death, because by my opinion, this is very affected, because if a person of civil society organization has such kind of social stigma and isolated, now they actually the militaristic politicians and movements, they have very elegant definition for such kind of things. They speak about culture of exclusion, you know, but in reality, this is some kind of bullying, harassment of people who speak something unpleasant. And very often they speak truth. Sometimes maybe they're crazy, but in many times they're true. And this is a problem, because civil death means also the economical exclusion. So they're excluded from the usual traditional forms of financial programs, etc., etc. And the same for people. People who write articles, they exclude from any kind of public tribunes or conferences, etc. As again, we have the situation with, I want to return to the Summit for Peace in Vienna. Very famous and very good organization, International Peace Bureau. Some people were excluded only for such kind of bullying in social media by some pro-Ukrainian activists, and not even pro-Ukrainians, like pro-military activists. So this is a very serious problem which we have now in Europe, not somewhere, not in Russia, not in Belarus, outside in here and now.
Yeah, you mentioned this civil death, which maybe in Swedish was more talking about social death. I think there is a problem to when looking a little bit too much on cases which are extreme, sort of. There are really such cases, and one example in Sweden, which is maybe similar to you, is Alexei Sashnin. He was part of the left front in Russia who organized protest against the presidential election in 2012 in Russia. And when the Russian authorities started to arrest more or less everyone, even if they hadn't been directly in the confrontation with the police, he had to flee to Sweden. And he was at first very well received. Every newspaper wanted to interview him. He wrote a lot about the oppressive, autocratic Russia. And he was also starting a network in solidarity with the so-called Bolotnaya prisoners, organized with the help of Front, a human rights organization in Sweden. But he also went to Ukraine together with another journalist and wrote about the problems with the right-wing extremist violence in Ukraine. And that was the end of it. He's been interviewed about this, and it's clear that suddenly all contacts, there was no one more who wanted to ask him about anything, and he lost a lot of social contacts, etc. So even if you're a prominent, obviously a central person in opposing the Russian government, if you make any sort of thing that goes against the sort of official agenda of the West, then you are taken out, sort of. That is taboo issues. So these things are, of course, important. We have a recent case in Sweden when one left-wing politician in Landskrona, a Palestinian, was claimed to make two confrontational Facebook pages. He was then thrown out of the political party. But furthermore, which is totally extreme for certain Swedish circumstances, is that he was blacklisted as a teacher and not allowed to teach anymore with the support of the trade union. And this is really one extreme radical step where this social death is followed. There are a lot of similar cases, but and there are these cases of we had a network in Sweden who was actually infiltrated by a security police agent. So there are these kind of things going on here. So, and it's been very clear at the climate summit in Copenhagen that the UK police had infiltrated the movements, and it was very horrible that these agents actually made love to activists, and there are children born out of this, and there's been a scandal, sort of. But we
very typical, actually, for Belarus.
Yeah?
Yeah, very typical, yes. Sorry to interrupt you. It's like again, welcome to Belarus.
Okay. We are on the way.
Yeah.
But I think it's very important to look at the broader picture, sort of. And what's specifically happening here is that it's both legally, the space for freedom of expression is shrinking in terms of new laws saying what you are allowed to say about Swedish participation in foreign military activities when we are in alliance with others. This has been very criticized, this law, but it's also even a strong media actors like the Swedish television is now afraid of making certain programs. So there are sort of restrictions on the traditional freedom of expression, but there's also a very big attack against the possible financial sources and spaces for where you can do things. So there is now the streamlining of all public support for all civil society in Sweden with a certain condition concerning what is your representatives allowed to say. As a member, you're still allowed to have your own opinion, but if you have any sort of role in an organization, you have to stick to never sort of be against sort of what is claimed to be taboo at this time. Well, some of these things can, of course, be seen as yeah, of course, an organization has to have some kind of democratic structure, etc. But then it comes to this gray zone where, as it has happened in a recent case, that Women for Peace was claimed to have a member that on Facebook made statements that was not sort of actually against what the organization officially had stated. And then she was questioned and not allowed to be a member in the corporation method. But 1 year afterwards, she had a position in an anti-nuclear weapon group. But because of her opinion in this pro-Russian opinion, this was claimed to be necessary for the authorities to force this organization to pay back, well, 20,000 euros. And also one other member in the board had also made in her private social media the same thing. The same things happened in Denmark, but then the minister said, well, if people are putting stupid things on their social media, if they then are not in the board anymore, then I will not stop funding this organization because of this. But in Sweden, this is not the case. And what we have in this new streamlining is that you are not allowed to have any in your leadership that has any kind of taboo opinion, even if the organization as such has a very clear opinion, in this case against the aggressive war, Russians' aggressive war against Ukraine. You're not allowed to have any board member or representative in your local groups who have a wrong opinion, because either they are under your jurisdiction or they are cooperation partners. And cooperation partners should not be allowed either to have any representative with them. And you're not allowed to have any speakers at any meeting. Who, even if they are asked to discuss an issue where there's no questions about this is correct, but if they also have other kind of opinions that are claimed to be problematic, then you are not allowed to have any funding anymore, and even repay funding in this case. And this will have enormous consequences, and people are not really understanding it now, but now it starts to be discussed. Because then suddenly all networks with many organizations, maybe hundreds and hundreds of organizations, have to take the consequences. Of course, they mainly after scaring people. But what we see is then, well, where are you supposed to be allowed to have a meeting at all? And you have these extreme cases when if you are an actor and you haven't made, there was this case with theater in Uppsala. And if you then are speaking at a meeting where you have a plain pro-Russian view, then you have to close down the whole theater, the program, because it's so dangerous to be a good actor. You're doing it well, and you have the script is fully okay. But people are reacting so strongly, so you are actually blacklisted, and you're not allowed to be an actor anymore. So we are in a very odd new situation for us in Sweden.
And I want to add some cases also, because by my opinion, this is what you should to expect. Again, the main problem that the space now is more and more shrinking, and people or politicians or organizations, they understand that this is a very good tool of manipulation. And if somebody is doing very unpleasant, you know, it's a tool to discipline or stop or to do something. We have the case of young journalist woman, Svetlana Galuza. She was reported about the cases of corruption within Belarusian civil movement. Immediately, she was in Lithuania, and she reported about the cases of Belarusian civil movement in exile in Lithuania, about one organization. And immediately she was labeled as a threat of national security of Lithuania by the foreign ministry, and under the threat to deport her back to Belarus. And in this case, she should be imprisoned. But this is one part of the story. And second part, it was unbelievable bullying and harassment in social media. And even people wrote to her parents and made a lot of threats to her parents, who is in Belarus now. You know, it was a lot of pressure for relatives. So we have to expect that it should be also connected to relatives. I have the experience. KGB tried to kidnap my son when he was 1 month old. And for me, as you know, the topic is very painful when relatives have pressure from my activities, and it's connected to people, to my any relatives. And so for her, it was maybe the most painful thing that her parents, her mother, for example, she didn't speak with her after the situation during 1 year. And when she got the scholarship in Germany, because she tried to, to go out from the situation, the people who is corrupted from the civil society organization from Belarus in Sälen, Lithuania, they organized attack for the German civil society organization and pressure for donors, etc., to use some kind of political tools, etc., just to shut up her. And so this is not even the question like about the relationship with Russia, or Palestine, very painful topic also. It's a question about corruption. And the same situation with Russian opposition movement. We have in Russia, not we, but they have a very famous blogger, Maxim Katz. He also reported only about corruption, even not about Putin, etc., about corruption in one famous Russian civil society organization. And immediately he had the civil death. And now in media and mainstream people in civil society organizations, they don't speak, they even remember his name. So by my opinion, and this is, even corruption, by my opinion, is important. We have to fight with corruption not only in the Belarusian government or Russian government, we have to exclude corruption in our cases too, and we have to speak about. But even in such kind of cases, people start to use these kind of tools of pressure. And now we have also the case of one woman. She makes the divorce from the domestic violence, but her husband is very famous Belarusian media blogger. And he started to write denunciation letters to the Lithuanian Department of National Security that she speaks some kind of pro-Putin statements at home. And you cannot, yes, at home, and you cannot believe, but now the woman, she's under the threat to be deported back, and to be the children should be with husband in Lithuania because they are under the threat, and she should be deported because she was housewife. And only, this is like a tool to solve any kind of problems, even within relatives, like, oh, you say something at home, and so maybe for Putin, you support Putin. So how is possible? And this is absolutely new reality, and we have to fight with such kind of things. Sorry to speak.
Oh, sorry, I can now unmute myself. Thank you very much. I just have a question for you, both of you. Like, how do we build resilience against this within the civil societies? Because the examples you've been taking are like very severe, and we have some kind of responsibility as activists and also as private persons to become some kind of like antibodies for this kind of mind virus that comes with this kind of very narrow narratives that are allowed, and if you go against them, I've seen it myself, like the civil death that you have been mentioning. Like, what would you say are like, what are the ingredients for a civil society activist to become resilient against these kind of attacks? Do you have some thoughts about that?
Who will answer first? You and me. So maybe I should start. First of all, I think that we as a peace movement have to pay very serious attention to protection of our activists and our partners and each other, of course, because before my partners in Europe, you know, I'm in peace movement, I don't know, more than 20 years. And of course, we always discussed how to protect us because we are under pressure, you know, something has happened, somebody is arrested or something like always. But now I want to say that we in Europe, we also have to pay attention how to protect ourselves here. Because unfortunately, what we should understand, this is a system. This is not like some kind of strange cases and no, this is the system, and militaristic politicians or leaders targeting people and targeting organizations, and they create common insecure feelings that everybody feels threats to participate in peace movement. And it means that we start to be under the social stigma and more marginalized. So we have to think how we can, first of all, save and increase the safe spaces offline and online for our activists still have dialogue, even dialogue about very unpleasant topics. Because by my opinion, we cannot have any taboo topics at all. So this is very important, but of course it's easy to speak, but hard to organize. Without dialogue, without diversity, without understanding that people, if you speak about human rights, you know, everybody loves to speak about human rights, but in reality, if you speak about human rights, this is all this about people whom you don't like. Maybe stupid, naive, romantic, horrible, I don't know, crazy, etc., etc. But we have to save space even for people if we don't like the people and their opinions, because it's much easier to live in bubbles. When we support each other, you know, and so the same opinion in very comfortable bubbles, but this is first step. We need safe spaces for ourselves, you know, of course, to have refresh and get new energy, etc., but also we have to fight with the new ghetto, because what I see now, we are more and more in some kind of civil ghetto, when it's possible to sit in some kind of small, beautiful houses somewhere in Sweden, you know, but if you speak about more public space, etc., it's very limited. So how to break out, and also how to return and how to promote peace narratives and peace culture, because peace culture means that we learn to live together even if you don't like the people around. So this is something something what we have to rethink again. And we need more public reflections about what is happens, and very open reflections, and even maybe unpleasant reflections about ourselves too. So it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, and one have to be a little bit specific. I've been involved much with solidarity with Russian activists and prisoners. And organized a global campaign against corruption in a motorway construction project in Moscow, 2010, when they put 200 people into police custody and threatened them with prison, etc. And I've continued doing this. We have now Boris Kagalitsky in prison, and we use his case to also question all political prisoners in Russia. And when I listen to Olga, it's quite clear that the situation is worse in Belarus, but it seems to be really problematic in Lithuania as well.
But you know, if I speak about corruption inside Belarusian regime, in Lithuania, it's like you're a hero, you know, like you're everywhere. If you touch and say that people, maybe this is a problem, we have to fix it. so it's absolutely crazy, you know. So you are toxic and you are excluded. Culture of exclusion.
But my point is that we we are not as well prepared. Now, when we see these tendencies in Sweden, we are not used it really, so how to stick together. And what happens quite a lot is that you protect your own organizations, etc. There was even the case when the People's High School didn't want to cooperate with the study organizations, because one of the study organizations is claimed to have been very wrong, and that means that one cannot cooperate. Climate activists can be protected, but we don't address peace activists and so on. So there is that kind of tendency. What is promising is that when the human rights organizations like Civil Rights Defenders makes a report about the general situation in Sweden and shows how this general situation starts to take ways of what the autocratic governments are doing. We shouldn't overstate. I think it's important that this doesn't mean that we are equal to what happens everywhere else, but there is new tendencies, and what they show is not only how the civil society is treated, but also in general migrants and that kind of things, including in this law who restricts freedom of expression I talked about before. And this is a very promising step. There's one limitation, which is very often in these discussions. It's never understood or stated that actually these kind of matters started against the peace activists. And that is very important, because that has been the guinea pig, sort of, to sort of start to questioning any kind of society critical movements. And that attack on the peace activists had been very much organized by the Swedish enterprises, who have a lot of money for doing these things. They set up a special organization to address security issues. Frivilligt is called, in 2011, if I'm correct. And they have been starting this propaganda saying we have to defund any media that is not according to what there should be certification for being allowed to have any funding from the state, etc. And I would say that much of now what's happening in general against funding of the peace movement have been totally excluded from funding, more or less, and this happens with the press as well. We haven't got the kind of broad idea we had before. And the popular education reduced by 1/3, etc. So it's very promising that we get a more complete picture, but also a realistic picture where we don't see that it is not necessarily comparable to the worst cases abroad, but we feel it, of course, in this way, because it goes so quick now. And then we have to sort of have these kind of discussions where we make these kind of a comparison, where I think the other main tool is not allowing double standards.
Yeah, but I want to tell the political joke about this kind of things also. Sorry to say.
I love that.
Actually, do you know the differences between optimist and pessimist?
Alchemist.
Pessimist and optimist.
Optimist.
Yes, optimist. Pessimist always think that, oh, this is the worst time which we have, and this is horrible situation. Mm-hmm. But optimist believes that the time could be even more worse. So, yeah. So yes, so I am optimist in this case. Believe me, the situation should be developed in much more worse direction, and we have to be prepared. So now we are in quite we are in bad situation, but we have to be prepared. That unfortunately I expect much more worse and more cases in such kind of way. So we are optimistic in this way.
Well, but to follow you, I might say that this is maybe true, because what we can see is that fairly soon people start to understand that they cannot only work within the issue which is sort of defined by those in power, that they start to understand we have common interest. We see this now yesterday, our friend from Extinction Rebellion in Finland started to discuss, but they also start to discuss the repression of the Palestine solidarity movement, to see certain patterns in common. And this has taken place in Sweden as well, where one compares what happened with the peace movement and the climate movement. So
and also about manipulation of information, because actually another political joke. I promise this is last as well, but I don't want to be very depressive. So this is, you know, black humor is some kind of tool to survive for our mental health. So if we speak about manipulation of information, so again, political joke from Belarus, my favorite, by the way. Once the god decided to organize the end of the world, and he invites 3 presidents, so Putin, Trump, and Lukashenko. And he said, my dear presidents, I want to organize the end of the world. Please return to your nation and prepare them. Trump returns to American nation, has a speech on American TV, and he said, my dear Americans, I have 2 news for you. One news is bad and one news is good. The good news, so American nation believes in God and builds a lot of churches, etc., etc. The goddess exists, and the bad news, the end of the world will be soon. Please be prepared. Putin returns to Russian nation, and he has a speech on Russian state TV, and he say, he's very sad, and he say, my dear Russians, I have 2 news for you. One news, and both news are really, really bad. We destroyed churches. We killed a lot of priests. We infiltrated church with KGB agents, etc., etc. But unfortunately, the God exists. And second bad news: the end of the world will be soon. Please go to home and be prepared. Lukashenko returns back. He has a speech on Belarusian state TV, and he looks very, very happy. And he says, my dear Belarusians, I have unbelievable, amazing, fantastic, beautiful news for you. First, beautiful or amazing news, at least God recognized me as your president. And second, unbelievable good news, I want to inform you, I will be your president until the end of the world. So please, let's work together. That unpleasant presidents and strange politicians will not be our leaders and will not be our decision makers until the end of the world. So this is our task as peace movement, as I see.
I'm afraid I have to.
But you know, it's like one fact, and so how different interpretations around why we need freedom of expression and freedom of choice, you know, and freedom of speech. So how you can think about
and why we need some Belarusian humor in this whole thing. I have to be a bit serious then, which is of course very serious. Now, we invited Glenn Deason as well to this program point, and he had accepted it, but we didn't get the final, he didn't answer on the final message when we sent this Zoom link to him. So we don't really, we've been trying to reach him, but haven't got, we don't know what. But the reason why we invited Glenn Deason, that he's been writing quite well about the problem when the whole public discourse becomes a discussion where it's the only thing allowed to discuss is to be for or against evil. You are on the good side or you are on the evil side, where it's more or less impossible then to discuss more factual things. And here is maybe the way out as well, because I think that we also have to look into the content of the way that these, we're talking about these horror specific issues and how they exclude things, etc. But it's also a question of content. And the way to avoid this evil good narrative, I would say, is to be avoiding double standards. there was this Nordic ministers who were interviewed in public television recently, and the first issue was hybrid war. And they talked about this as something happening now, and it's threatening indirectly the sort of physical threat to people living in the Nordic countries. Now, this concept is extremely vague. It's information. Well, you don't kill people with information. Then, of course, they brought up this thing with cables, etc. The problem with the cable stories is that we don't know if that really is done intentionally. Actually, there are quite a lot of cases showing that it is not. It happens anyway, sort of. And I think it's, of course, it's very important that the government have security and intelligence to avoid such when such things really, and we know that such things happens, that they sort of attacks against our infrastructure. But there is one super extreme attack against infrastructure in the Nordic countries, and that's the explosion of the Nord Stream. And that is now very clear that it certainly was not Russia doing it. There was some sort of odd claims before. So but they avoid the most obvious example. And by looking at these double standards, how concepts are used, I think one can come far away. And also I'm following some pro-Ukrainian military bloggers who have been to Ukraine as Australian soldier, among them Willy UAM, and he's very strict on reporting. Where is actually the contact line between the two opposing parties, Russian and Ukrainian, and by that very strict attitude, at the same time, from a soldier perspective, thinks it's important that both sides, in spite of you have an occupant on the one side and you have a sort of country defending itself, it's still so that war rules should be followed according to the same standards. It's dangerous when one sort of lets loose. And secondly, he relates, and there's several doing this, relates this to common theory about war. Not as something, a narrative that only the one side or the other one is in doing things, which means that you can get some kind of relation between facts and theory, and you are not mixed up in narratives, and narratives have a tendency to have this good and evil dichotomy, and that I think Landisen has written well about. So with other words, we have to not only talk about facts, we have to claim that your facts has to be put into a clear theoretical framework. And then we come to what the human rights organizations have been doing, which I think is problematic, is that they separated social human rights from civil rights, and then they started to talk about civil rights were only a question for Eastern Europe under the communist time, and then it was only Russia and Belarus, more or less, or occupied territories in Ukraine. And when actually things happened in Ukraine, which was there were secret prisons, Amnesty have reported about, they were killing journalists, there was all the range of oppression taking place there also. It was totally excluded from very many human rights organizations. I think that weakens our struggle for fighting against repression in Russia or Belarus. And that's, I think, your experience from both these sides are important. But by not using double standards, we can start to stand up together and start to see that, well, there are ways out, and uniting movements in different countries. And here I see some positive ways out of this, that we start to look at the common picture. And I think the Civil Rights Defenders report was interesting, starting to look at, well, it's not only them. This happens also here. Let's look at about this more systematically, and include how the peace movement activists have been part of this.
Yes, and thank you very much. And sorry, I forgot to say, if you're in Belarus, don't forget, don't repeat the jokes. And so punish it. But I'm totally agree that we need to have more connection with different movements, and we have public discussion. And actually, it was a very big mistake in Belarus when we made the division between social rights and civil rights, because for people after Soviet Union, they really didn't understand. You know, it was something like too high level for them to understand. But nobody spoke about social rights except Lukashenko. Lukashenko was the guy who always spoke about social rights, you know, like he says, no, we have to save 3 years of baby holiday for women, to care babies, and of course people, yes, it's really nice idea to have 3 years paid, 3 years of holiday for women with guarantee of working place, etc., etc. And of course he was playing with this. And as we see any populistic movements and ultra-right-wing movements, they're quite well to work with especially social rights, and for people it's very clear why they support it. And so we cannot divide, and we need a strong discussion about what is happens, you know. And I actually I don't want to have good news or bad news from any side. I just want to have a picture with all news, you know. And so I have no expectation that, okay, in the West is paradise and yes, some ways horrible, you know, hell. No, I want to know truth. And I have expectation now that I haven't full information about what is happens, because propaganda here, where is real news? Where is real information? I receive the information from peace movement, from newsletters which you sent to me, and thank you very much who is doing this kind of work. But again, this is how many people receive it. So, and how many people live under propaganda and even they don't understand this. So this is also the question. And sorry, return the place to you, to close you, to you. Yeah.
Maybe it's time to have breakup rooms.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And as a big fan of comedy, I really enjoyed your joke, Olga. I just want to...
I heard many. Maybe we should organize workshop, you know, it's only about Belarusian jokes, political jokes.
One of the great philosophers of our time, Slavoj Žižek, said once that one of the first important signs before the war in Balkan was that they stopped making jokes. They stopped making fun of each other. And I think that's such an important, like, if we can't laugh at each other and at ourselves, then we're in, it's one of the signs of doom. So thank you for that very funny joke. I will.
And actually, I add one comment why humor is important, because militaristic leaders and politicians, they're like monuments, you know. They cannot accept jokes and humors, etc. And this is also, if you see how somebody reacts for jokes very negative, this is also like some kind of yellow lamp.
Yeah. Yes, and now we will go to breakout rooms. This means David will divide us in smaller groups, and you have sent some questions, Olga and Tord. I will put them in the chat. First one is just a general reflection on the topic. What did you hear? What was said? Have you experienced being limited in your expression? And what steps can we take to move away from this situation? And just some ground rules for the breakout rooms. Just try to let everyone get a chance to say something. So if you're a person who really likes to talk, that's wonderful, but try to be conscious that to give space for others. And if you're a bit more shy to talk, see this as an opportunity to try to express yourself. Freedom of expression as the topic of this forum. Are we ready to go to breakout rooms?
No.
No.
You see, we have somebody in behind, you know, it's like secret people.
It's our own KGB. Yeah. So yeah, and of course you're allowed to reflect on anything, also from the topic before, reflections and a commentary from the Folk och Försvar conference made by Lars Drake. So this is a part where we invite you to have a moment of discussion, and around, I would say, maybe 30 minutes in smaller groups. And then we meet each other again here in this main room and just listen to what was said in the rooms. So we're just waiting for the technology to take over. Ready to go. Okay. Yes. Yalla, let's go.
There you go. The microphone should work without problem. If not, come back to the main room and we'll see what we can do.
Och man får prata på svenska om man vill.
So you've been sent an invite to join the room. Please click on the link on the screen. And here we'll be entertaining the Facebook stream.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people there, but
I see some comments here too. You know, so.
yeah, that last one was me.
Yeah.
One of those was me. Yeah.
I think I will hear some more Belarusian.
Yeah. Some more comedy session. Brilliant.
I need it. I think.
Stand up by Olga.
Actually, while we are waiting people, I can tell the story about climate changes in Belarusian style. You know, and so this is real story. This is not joke, but you know, actually in Belarus we have some kind of fake channels and they produce fake news. But sometimes people cannot understand, you know, and so the news are so absurd, you know, they don't see the difference. So this is not joke, this is real story, but I really love it. And about climate changes in Belarusian style. Do you remember that when West organized the economical sanctions for Russia for the Crimea? It was 10 years ago, and Russia started to organize food sanctions for Western companies. So Western companies cannot sell. I think so, yeah.
No, no,
no, it's okay.
Men det är inte brott. Har de då anslutit sig?
No, a lot of people have not joined the rooms.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe they're not there, or maybe they just don't want to. I don't know. It always happens. We just continue.
Yeah, okay. And Russia, as answer, Russia organized a lot of food sanctions for the Western companies. For example, it was forbidden to sell Western cheese, salmon from Norway, you know, shrimps, papaya, many things. And what Lukashenko did, it's again not a joke, real story. So he organized a lot of Belarusian state companies, and people are sitting there and just integrate with the Western food company. So the Western food is coming to Belarus, and special people in the company sit and make the labels, make in Belarus. And you should imagine immediately the food like salmon, shrimps, papaya, melons, you know, bananas, everything is going to Russia for the Russian food market as made in Belarus. Of course, Russian people were shocked, you know, to see such kind of food. And at least when Belarus sold to Russia, cocos nuts made in Belarus grow up in Belarus for $1 million. Putin, of course, it was many questions to him, firstly, and he made the public question to Lukashenko, and he said, Lukashenko is like, Alexander, what is happens, you know, and so how is possible, like we have Vitebsk shrimps, you know, and so salmon from Gången, and again, like papaya from Bishenkovich, it's impossible, you know, but he said, no, it's everything was growing in Belarus. He said, how is possible? He said, do you know anything about climate changes? We have it.
No, this is not true. This is not true.
Yes, and he said it publicly. And, and Putin was so shocked, you know, he didn't find what to answer, you know, and after Lukashenko, his field near his presidential residency, he put a lot of melons in his field, but it was clear that he did it because, you know, if you grow up melons, you need some kind of, you know, connection with the ground, you know, and so he invited his girls from his how do you say, service of protocol or something like that, and so this is some kind of group of girls who organize everything, etc. And together with the girls, they collected the melons, and he invited journalists, and he said, you see, I grow up the melons myself. So, you know, so it was absolutely clear that it's of course not, you know, and so, but now we have climate changes in Belarusian style, you know, and still we have Belarusian salmon and shrimps and papaya and cocos nuts and many other tested food made in Belarus. So, but not joke, but also fun.
Yeah, very fun. Obviously, we need some more Belarusian attitude when we discuss these things in Sweden.
And environmental news, how to organize, you know, how to fight with climate changes, you know. Belarus did it successfully.
But actually, this was exactly how they were selling nuclear power in Sweden, because they said that, you know, there's a lot of hot water coming out of the nuclear power plants. And that would sort of make it possible to grow palm trees and tropical climate in Sweden.
Yeah.
So that was actually serious. You know.
See you in
let's speak. I think that we have to read maybe some comments, and because people will read it. And, for example, I see the comment from Ulla from Finland, and hi Ulla, I'm very happy to see you, and thank you for enjoying and following for us for our discussion. And hello everyone who knows me. I'm very happy to see you, and let's fight together actually, and let's fight to continue. Actually, by my opinion, you know, we need more energy, inspiration, and mobilizing. And by my opinion, such kind of news and jokes help us to find any kind of additional energy. Do you find any kind of? Yeah, I see my name somewhere, but in Svenska.
Yeah. The first thing talks about case-free lawyers. I don't know what if Vera refers to Kagalitsky or something happening.
Yes, the 3 lawyers are also under. So they are looking forward for imprisonment because they have Kagalitsky. So I just saw yesterday in the news.
That's really extreme.
Excuse me, Vera, I think there is some confusion here. The news were about 3 lawyers who helped Navalny when he was alive about a year.
Yeah. It was
ago.
2 days ago. Yes, I remember. It was.
Yes, the lawyer who helped Kagarlitsky is alive and well. They changed a lawyer, I think, about some months ago, but nothing bad happened with also with the previous lawyer and the current one.
Yes, I'm sorry. So, and what do you know about these 3 lawyers who helped Navalny?
They actually were sentenced. The charges were that they helped Navalny to illegally transmit his materials, his writings from prison to the free space, because these materials were extremist in some way, according to the charges. And so they received, one of them received 3 years and a half of the prison term because he collaborated in some way with the prosecution, and 2 others received 5 years and 5 years and a half because they didn't collaborate with the prosecution.
But I want to say that it's very often in Belarus. We have the problem with lawyers now, because all lawyers who protected opposition activists or independent journalists, they lost their license, and some of them are imprisoned because if you protect extremists, you also label it as extremist in Belarus. And so this is why I speak again. I want to repeat why we have to fight against social death and against social stigma, because this is how governmental structures can targeting us, you know. And so without lawyer, this is very, very complicated to protect themselves or ourselves. The same situation in Lithuania, they have another tool of how to exclude any judicial help. This is very expensive. And of course, for Belarusians, for example, for Belarusian refugees, to pay 1,500 euro only per one process, per one appeal, it's unbelievable price. And of course, people cannot protect themselves because they need lawyer, but at the same time, they have no money. You know, and this is also, this is like different tools, but the result is the same. People cannot get access to the lawyers. So this is very interesting how everything is working. But of course, I'm following for the process with 3 lawyers of Navalny. We have the same situation like lawyer of the main candidate for president election 2020, Viktor Babarika, the lawyer named Maxim Znak. He's also imprisoned together. They're imprisoned together, and this is the reality what we have. But our problem, that the governmental structures from both sides, here we are and there, they exchange such kind of experience, and they implement successful practices, how to discipline, how to stop, how to pressure civil society. And this is very alarming. So if they government in Belarus and Russia do it, we have to expect that it should be something like that here too. So this is a problem. We are like between 2 fires.
But here I see that, I don't know about Lithuania, but in Sweden this is not so very clear. But what's happening is that these juridical aspects of whether you can get correct false information about yourself, etc. It's a very complicated juridical aspect. And this was clear in one report from Atlantic Council, which is probably the most well-funded think tank, sort of, by billionaires in many countries and NATO and so on. And they made these reports about different Western countries, and they made this report about Sweden, where they attacked the person claiming that he was a Russian sort of problem. And he tried to find out how was it possible to address this juridically, and he was well experienced, but you end up in a Kafka society, because no, this is not actually, it's under American jurisdiction. It was written by a Swedish person from this Swedish enterprise think tank, but you get into these loops, and you have this case with now that the authorities that wanted to take away the money from Women for Peace, they gave a lot of money to a company run by security police people, former, and they made up a lot of simple false claims, which is now started to use others as the truth. And it's how to address this, which lawyer is willing to address it, etc. So we are running into similar, although I would not say it's far from what you say in Russia and Belarus. So we shouldn't alarm ourselves too much, but we certainly, what they certainly learn from each other between Western countries. And much of this has been organized by Atlantic Council at the Swedish Embassy in Washington. You can find it on internet, how they see the necessity of organizing campaigns against disinformation, they call it, but in reality very much is against domestic peace opinion. And then they claim that this is worse actually than when it comes from Russian sources, and you end up in a very, very dangerous world where some have enormous resources to find out details and odd things, and then how to defend each other in these cases. We need to have more knowledge about it. We need to, as you have been pointing out, we have to stand up for everyone, and not only our own group. And then we have to have some jokes.
Yeah, but I want to add only that this is also my lesson. A government, they never start from the privileged groups. If they want to have any kind of repression or any kind of limitation or shrinking space, they always start from somebody who is in marginalized sphere. So this is also very important to keep in mind. I want to give you the example. In Belarus, we have the death penalty, as you know, like as a terrorist, you know. This is the topic. The topic is very important for me. So when Lukashenko got the power, first, what he started to do, he started to kill chiefs of mafia, gangsters. And even he spoke publicly. He said that people, I killed gangsters because we need safety again, the threatening of security again, you know, the same message. And actually, majority applauded him. Majority says that, oh, this is so nice, this is so clever idea, this is bad people, of course they have to be killed, we need security, absolutely no problem at all. And after, Lukashenko started to kill opposition leaders and independent journalists. And society, like, they didn't like this, but they say, this is horrible politicians, you know, and so this is like this political games, they always do something with each other, and so we don't want to care about it. Now, Lukashenko killed 500 people under the death penalty sentence, and you know, I am under the same risk here. And he started to kill people without even court, you know. This is in development only because people accept something against human rights at the beginning, and they think that yes, it's possible to do something. The same situation we are fighting many years for children prisoners in Belarus, because in Belarus, if children smoke marijuana, they can be imprisoned for 10 years, 14 years old. Because when we started to do it, many people say, this is, you know, the drug users, they have to be imprisoned, etc. Now we have 60,000 people under torture, and people who was under the torture,
Jag tycker både deras
they
telefon och
start to understand that
kram. Ta hand om det och
we
hälsa alla
need human
jättebra.
rights for everyone.
Ta hand om det. Kram hej.
Yeah, we need human rights for everyone, even if the person is doing something bad. We need equal conditions, equal standards. It's impossible to torture him or her. It's impossible to kill, but the price, 60,000 people under torture. It was possible to exclude such kind of bloody price if people started to think about these kind of things before. And this is why I am here, because I have a lot of triggers that now we all are in Belarus. You know, again, I want to repeat. So, everything what I see now here in our region, you know, I don't want to say about the whole Europe because I don't know the situation, but here in our region, I saw absolutely the same trends in Belarus 30 years ago. It was something here, some kind of here, some kind of here. People see the puzzles, but they don't understand that this is the system. This is the strategy to oppress, because every country wants to have comfortable civil society, very quiet, don't criticize people, don't criticize anybody, etc., etc. So this is our task, you know, to be some kind of troublemaker for any government. Otherwise, we wake up in Belarus.
I think what Natalia addressed yesterday, Selevska, that we have to stick to this necessity of looking at specific cases and protecting human rights for everyone. And this is why the People and Defense conference this year, taking place last weekend, was so dangerous in two aspects, because the Prime Minister started to say that it's not war, but it's non-peace. And somebody else said that it's not hybrid war, it is war. And even the hybrid war is very problematic concept that includes very different aspects which shouldn't be included, actually. The problem with that is not maybe what people think. What people think is that, oh, if it's war, they can do whatever they want. No, if it's war, then there are war laws. But a non-peace is much worse, because that means there is no rules whatsoever. And this kind of vagueness that is starting to develop, actually, this peace movement is actually some fifth column, or actually in the hands of foreign agents, etc., etc. So we are in this, what you say, sense a long time ago, and what can we then do to not get threatened, but anyway to look into what are the realities, sort of. And that's why I think the necessity of educating ourselves and protect everybody, and then to be observant on these kind of details, that it is important with the rule of law. Immanuel Wallerstein was a well-known intellectual who wrote about the word system. And he said the necessity of defending the liberal rights. Even if the system starts to forget about them, one should still sort of defend them as a defensive thing. And what happened now in Finland is dangerous, when they suddenly say, no, we forget about the international rules that we have signed about asylum rights, because now these migrants from the Middle East coming from Russia, they are actually some kind of secret hybrid war. And that is why we say that now totally new, we forget about the rules, and now we say that's freedom to do whatever you want with these people and stop them. And here,
this is the situation in Belarusian, Lithuanian, and Belarusian Polish border. So this is unbelievable.
As far as I live in the world, because on the Polish side, there are civil society organizations trying to defend these people.
Yeah, but in Lithuania too. So, but it's not easy because, as you understand, again, this is both sides' responsibilities, you know, and so this is not like only one side. And people are between, and the situation, this is unbelievable. They sold the apartments, they get a lot of cash, they arrive to Belarus, and the enforcers in Belarus, they beat them to remove all cash, so all money, and push them to Polish and Lithuanian border. Lithuanian border control, of course, violates them and push them back, but Belarusian border don't allow them to return, and so they push them back again to Lithuanian Polish border. They push them back to Belarus, and they're in between, in neutral zone, without food, without medicine, and you know, weather in our region, you know, it's quite cold, and people from the country, they even cannot imagine, you know, there should be some kind of, they are not prepared at all. So this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Don't let me disturb you.
So we have to return people back. We need people back.
No,
I think this is just going to pull everybody dramatically out of their rooms instead of giving them a nice timer. But, oh no, 60 seconds. Everyone else is back in 60.
Good.
Okay, 60.
Yeah, we will get the rooms, people from the rooms back in less than a minute, and continue maybe then and hear what they have been discussing.
And so, but how much time now we have? We almost have to finish. Okay.
So, how can we be happy when things are so horrible?
Actually, yes, we are optimists, you know, the situation will be worse. So, but I understand that the situation is quite depressive, and we all feel excluded, and we all feel in despair, no energy. People don't believe that they can organize any kind of influence, etc., etc. But I just wait all people, and I want to say something very important, by my opinion. But
yes,
I don't know how to understand, you know.
Coming back, welcome everyone. I hope you had a great time in your breakout rooms. The discussion has been continuing here in the main room as well. And I can just start by mentioning that when
I want to tell something, literally several sentences, and so I just wait people and give the floor to you.
Yeah, I just mentioned that when everyone who comes into the room, your mics are unmuted. So if you're not planning on speaking right away, please mute yourself so there's no disturbing sounds. And yeah, now the plan is to have a more general discussion in this larger group. So if you have something, I would just give you soon, Olga, just some practical details. Like if you want to share something, what was said in your rooms, or comment on what Olga and Tord has been speaking about, you do like Roland. You raise your hand digitally, and I will give you the word. But yeah, Olga, you wanted to open up with something, please.
Yes, I want to say something, and by my opinion, this is very important. Look at me. I am Belarusian woman, middle age. I'm a person with disability. I'm 50% paralyzed. I'm absolutely peaceful. I have no weapons. I have no army. I have no nothing, you know, behind. only my values, my beliefs, you know, my dreams. And in opposite side, we see Lukashenko, a person with nuclear weapons, you know, the army, secret police, etc., etc. And for me, it's very important sometimes when I am depressed and I have no energy to continue at all. So everyone has such kind of moments. You know, I always repeat myself, Olga, Lukashenko, please remember, Lukashenko believe in you, in your power, much more than you believe in yourself. Because if we see, if you count how many powers, energy, etc., Lukashenko, Russian secret forces, Lithuanian government, many other people spend to stop you, you don't understand your power. You know, absolutely peaceful woman without, you know, any kind of high political positions, etc. But they afraid us as peace movement, not only me, but you as peace movement much more that you afraid of somebody and you don't understand your power. Because on other side, you should imagine how many structures, power, money, I don't know, everything is spent to stop you. And they cannot. We still survive. Peace movement, European peace movement, international peace movement still survive, active and successful in our campaigning. So please, if you are very depressive, please remember my message. We cannot disappoint these people. They spend so many energy to stop us, so they believe in us much more than we believe in our power. Now, this is like common discussion, but this is what I want to say.
Thank you so much. That was very encouraging. Roland, what's on your mind?
Well, every war is the result of tens of years of negligence to building peace. We have to learn to build peace, not only build weapons, but those who believe in the weapons think that building peace is contrary. It is a complementary, although I, like Olga, is a pacifist, but I'm a very strong protector of the systems to give water, food, and housing, heat to everyone. But this is regarded as a margin. This war machine that gets all the money tells the households, you have to fix that security. You have to fix a big bottle of water, and you have to fill your wardrobe. I say the households don't get the weapons to defend, and well, we should get a coupon. Here's a good container for 50 liters of water, and they should tell us what food is good to, and perhaps even supply some of it to us. But no country in the world is building peace. They don't understand this. When the Eastern system fell in parts, we should have helped the Russian people and the others to build democratic institutions, support their people's movements, see that they can defend their local industry. We left everything in chaos, and the Western and Eastern oligarchs stole the public property, also with the help of our Swedish banks, who washed the money, hundreds of milliards of euros. I mean, there was in the Cold War there was a movement to have a picture at home that you see every day, one family from East and one from West and one from some some Asian or African country, to try to start the feeling we have to build peace together. Peace doesn't build itself, just like the weapons don't build themselves. Thank you.
Thank you for the sharing. For me, your message is very important because Belarusian political refugees in Lithuania, we have many cases. You should imagine people are imprisoned, tortured after they're fleeing through the forest illegally, and when they arrive to Lithuania, they have to ask political asylum. But as a result, according to the legislation, Lithuanian legislation, they have no right to work, and this is zero support from Lithuanian government. So people are homeless without any possibilities to live. You know, they have no work legally, so they have to go and work illegally. But you understand and you know what means to work illegally in European country. You have absolutely no guarantees. You can work 10 hours and receive nothing, and you cannot complain, and you know you have no any protection, etc., etc. And my organization, we organize free food for Belarusian refugees, and very welcome actually to support us in such kind of way. It's unbelievable when I listen that Olga, your food, this is only the food which I have during last 2 weeks. This is unbelievable that people are hungry even in Lithuania, and they have no minimum nothing to survive. You know, this is thank you for sharing. I absolutely agree. We have so much money for military industry. 13% of the global GDP is spent for weapons now, for the war, for military militarization, you know, and at the same time somebody in such countries like Lithuania has no basic things, you know, they have no food. This is something what I strongly support you. Sorry. So, this is your floor.
Thank you. Sälen, you have raised your hand.
Hej, jag heter Janne. Vi har pratat här ett gäng lite grann om vad, det är väl det vi saknade lite grann eller det vi vill bidra med. Aha, just det. Excuse me. In English. We have discussed what can we do together? How can we together act and do good things so that we encourage ourselves and Olga, your organization, and all the people who are working with you. And we had you told us yesterday when we spoke a little about it that 60,000 refugees from Belarus, 15,000 Russians in Litauen, and 80,000 Ukrainians in Litauen, and that these people, it should be possible at least to work together with people from these groups, and to make a sort of a conference or hearing or something where we come from different European countries to promote peace and climate justice, the connection between peace and the environmental and climate chaos that the world is going towards. That was one idea, that we perhaps could do this in the spring sometime. Another idea that we discussed yesterday was all the independent bloggers, the military bloggers and political bloggers, who now are lack of information and discussion about the war. Perhaps would it be possible to gather them here in Sweden or somewhere else to instead discuss the peace, the possibility for peace, or our ideas about what should be done instead of these killings. Another idea was about culture, peace culture, to connect people who are working with culture in our countries, and to perhaps do something together, musicians and artists and other people. That's one area where you could do things together. Another thing was the celebration of freedom in the end of the war, Second World War. I think it was the 9th of May. Is that right? Or do I call it? Yeah.
8, 9. So some people have different opinion.
Okay, but the same day, do something the same day all over Europe to celebrate the peace and to celebrate the idea of the idiotic thing because what's happening now is that we are preparing the big states, NATO and BRICS country, all are more armament, and they are preparing a third world war. That's the perspective that they are talking about now. At least that's the feeling that it could be like this. It's war, and to defend our interest and gave a damn shit about the whole world and the population. So this was some ideas. Perhaps you could do something about that. And
yes, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. This is many different ideas which we can realize, and yes, this is very important what we told yesterday, and I want to realize it, but I want to speak about one common strategical goal now, because as I see, every government in our region built some kind of front line between countries, between people, between organizations, etc., etc. And by my opinion, this is our task as a peace movement to build some kind of peace line, you know. And for this, we have to make 3 steps. First of all, we have to help people who want to avoid any participation in the war to do it. Of course, first of all, I mean Belarusian, Russian, and Ukrainian conscientious objectors, because they are absolutely stigmatized in their countries, criminalized. They have a lot of problems with legislation if they're coming to European countries, etc., etc. So I think that if people want to have peace and don't want to support a war, we have to do everything to help such kind of people to avoid the war, to be organized and to act. This is first step. Second step, we need to fight for nuclear disarmament, because 3 years ago, for me it was a very big surprise, but in our region, people believed in weapons like other people believe in God. You know, and this is something, or in Bible, you know, and this is some kind of religious, new religious in our region. But now the situation is escalating, and people believe in nuclear weapons, and everybody wants to have nuclear weapons. So nuclear disarmament, and I want to remind that in Belarus we have nuclear weapons since last year. This is very, very important campaign as campaign against militarization in all senses, including militarization of our children. This is a common trend in absolutely all countries, in Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, Poland, Baltic countries, everywhere, you know, and also to return back to the struggle for peace, including struggling for climate changes, for women's rights, for, you know, human rights, etc., etc. Because during 30 years, when I'm a feminist, you know, in Belarus, strange, but anyway, 30 years, when I raised up the question about the situation with women's rights in Belarus, I listened one message from the, how do you say, classic opposition movement, that it's no time to decide or raise up women's questions, because when we will have democracy, we will decide the questions and problems of women, children, LGBT, somebody else, etc., etc. Now I listen the same message like now we have a war. This is no time to decide women's problems. When we have the time for our problems? Never, you know. So 30 years I listen the same song, the same political song. This is different reasons. We have dictatorship, we have a war, we have something, etc. So this is we have second step. We have to fight for, again, nuclear disarmament and against militarization, including to return to our, how do you say, traditional struggling in our spheres. And third step is very important. We have to promote peace narratives, and we have to fight for peace culture. And this is what we discussed yesterday, to including different independent bloggers and media, etc., because now we have a lot of military propaganda from both sides. But if you want to find something about peace, you cannot find anything, you know. And so we know how many people are killed, where something is ruined, etc., etc., but nobody is preparing, nobody is talking about peace. And if everyone is preparing for the war, we receive the war. Who is preparing for peace now? Nobody. You know, this is unbelievable. And this is what we have to do together. We have to fight, and we have to increase the public spaces, to go outside the ghetto, and to promote and implement peace narratives and peace culture again. It's very strange for me, because it's something like 100 years of struggling and just time machine. We are again at beginning, you know, 100 years ago. But we have experience, we have skills, we know each other, you know, and so we are not at beginning for ourselves. So we have to make 3 steps, and of course we need workshops, seminars. We have some kind of peace academy for Baltic countries, for refugees from Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine. We have to build bridges to Russia, to Belarus, to Ukraine, and support peace movements there. This is very important. And also to, how do you say, troubling our governments in our countries, because by my opinion, if they speak about some kind of tax for weapons, for militarization, we have to ask 10% of tax for peace. 10% from the money for militarization has to go to the peace movement, to the struggling with the consequence. Because who is working with the consequence? We are, sorry. Who is working with Ukrainian refugees or Russian or Belarusian refugees? Who is dealing with so many things? Who will work for miners in Ukrainian forest with bombs, you know? And it's very dangerous now, not only for people, but for animals, you know? And so who will remove the bombs from forest? This is open question, you know? And so 3 steps and many activities inside, including free food for people who is in needs, of course, workshop together with peace activists and peace organizations from different countries, help us to self-organize, because we need strong international peace movement, not international, even European peace movement. But if I speak about Europe, for me, Europe, Russia is Europe, Belarus is Europe, Ukraine is Europe too, you know, and so we cannot have borders in our head, you know, and so this is something what we have to achieve. And I believe that we can do it together.
Yeah. This thing with culture, I think that is one of the main tools now, because in this polarized time, culture can sort of address these problems in a different way. There is an interesting concert now which will take place in Finland, and it's called Silence the Drums of War, or Silence the Drums of Fight. And it's a very nice expression, I would say, because with music you can do that. And they have some of the most famous music groups in Finland supporting this, as far as I understand, who are popular also among young people. In spite of that, the situation is very tough in Finland, in some ways more tough than in Sweden. We heard yesterday how the proposal is to criminalize Extinction Rebellion so far, and 100,000 people have signed this appeal. Still, they have this capacity of doing things where you address the whole population, more or less. And can we do that in a way where we can also do it in Belarus or in Lithuania or in Ukraine? These ecumenical efforts, we have had some contact with the Ecumenia Church, who is interesting because they have also chapters in both Ukraine and Russia. And I've heard that the eco-village movement is very strong in Russia and actually in Ukraine as well. I don't know if there is one such in Belarus.
In Belarus, no.
Because Lukashenko solves all the problem.
Yeah.
But anyway,
actually, it's not a joke. Sorry, it's a real story again. But Lukashenko, he believes that he is a little higher than God. He spoke publicly about it.
But anyway,
so they're struggling, you know.
to go back to these basic things which sort of unites people, and we'll have to look at the positive picture of what happened for 2 years ago when the climate movement decided in consensus that we need peaceful coexistence, we need common security, and we need long-term disarmament. And this was done with trade unions, tenants organizations, climate. Yeah. So these basic things is something that we can make messages out of. Then what we can do more specific thing with bloggers or so on. Yes. But this kind of addressing that we are building bridges across the borders, and even if the oppression is extreme, more extreme than in Sweden, there is still possible maybe to have expressions of that we care for planet Earth. There was this peace festival in Murmansk, 1989, if I remember right, where thousands of activists from the Nordic country, for the first time ever, crossed the border between Norway and Russia and went to Murmansk and had this music festival. And there was messages from Gorbachev and so on. And out of that grew an environmental movement on the Kola Peninsula. And in one small village, Antracita, I think it was called, they started having a garden at the school. And this became a project for saving energy and so on, which then was developed in all the Russian Federation. So with other words, this kind of positive things can maybe come out of this time where we see that all the movements actually have something in common. We have to specialize, of course, on certain things. But if we can sort of do things that symbolically shows that humanity is one and that we need to protect planet Earth, and that is a way towards peace.
Thank you. We have just a couple of minutes, and just Ulf Sandmark, om du kan stänga av din mikrofon, hade det varit jättetrevligt. Det låter lite.
Politiker då i styrelsen och så har han anställt en politiker i bolaget
Och Erik Danielsson, dig hör vi också. Jag tror att det inte var en kommentar till det här. We have just 2 minutes left. If there's somebody who has a short reflection or something they are sitting on, you're very welcome to give it now.
Vera, hi. It's very popular in Belarusian state TV to say, you know, like, I want to say my best regards, you know. I don't know how is the same, but yeah.
Are you free to come this evening? Olga, are you coming this evening?
No, before yesterday.
Yes, I see.
Well, thank you everyone for this freedom of expression talks. Thank you so much, Olga and Tord, for both the jokes, but also the gravity of the situation. Super interesting, and I really hope that many have heard your message today, Olga. It has really touched me in many ways, especially when the message about even if you don't believe in yourself, Lukashenko believes in you, then that's...
But you should imagine the same about NATO. You know, you cannot disappoint these people. They believe in you, you know, and so you have to continue.
And I think that's a great message for everyone to take with them from this section of freedom of expression. You cannot disappoint the warmongers.